Hello, everyone. Thank you for all being here with us. Braintrace and our partner, Nyotron, we're excited to have you join us on this webinar today. My name is Greg Spicer. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Braintrace, and I will be the moderator for today's session. For a brief intro about the organizations today, we are Braintrace. We're a next generation leader in cybersecurity services. We offer a unique blend of technology and solutions, as well as managed services that cater to the cybersecurity landscape. These solutions, among other, include managed detection and response, managed SIEM, network traffic analysis, SOC as a service, endpoint detection and response, DLP, data loss prevention, and of course, advisory services where we can do consulting in various aspects. If you'd like to learn more about us, please feel free to reach out to me after this webinar or any of the other Braintrace colleagues that are on the line. Today, we've invited Nyotron CTO and founder Nir Gaist to give us all a presentation. We'd like this to be a very interactive session, so please keep it fun and feel free to ask any questions at any time using the Q&A icon at the bottom of the window in Zoom. A little bit about Nir. He is a recognized information security expert and an ethical hacker. I repeat the word ethical there. He started programming at age 6 and began his studies at the Israeli Technion University at age 10. Nir has worked with some of the largest Israeli organizations, such as the Israeli police, the Israeli parliament, Microsoft headquarters in Israel. He has also wrote the cybersecurity curriculum for the Israel Ministry of Education. Nir holds patents for the creation of programming language called Behavior Pattern Mapping, or BPM, that enables monitoring of integrity of the operating system behavior to deliver threat-agnostic protection. Lastly, just as a reminder, Braintrace and Nyotron will donate a lunch to a local charity of your choice in support of healthcare professionals. It's not too late to still do this and pick your charity if you haven't already done so. So please send us a message right now in the Zoom chat icon on where you want that to go and the name of your organization. Other than that, we look forward to today's discussion, and Nir, take it away.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you for all the attendees. It's really cool to be here with you all today and discuss this cool topic in these crazy days. I hope that all of you are probably at home in your home office. Some companies already announced they will stay home forever, which is pretty cool. So webinars is probably the one of the more entertaining options these days. So thank you for joining us. What we're going to do today is I always prefer to start with a demo. So we're gonna talk a little bit about your legacy security protection. When say legacy, I specifically mean some more traditional approaches, some more traditional AV solutions. So we're gonna talk about them. We're gonna show some demo to really understand the problem first before we dive in. I always, again, prefer to show a demo first. Then we will really dive into the question of is antivirus really dead? Because some companies, and specifically the actual AV companies, already declared AV dead several times. So let's really understand if this concept is really dead. Is it really not needed anymore? So that's really the topic I want to touch today. We're going to talk about the different options. The actual alternatives to antivirus. Then I'll talk about defense in depth and how really can these approaches work together. So let's start with a demonstration. I prepared some cool environment here with a victim and an attacker, of course. What we have here in this environment, let's take a look. So we have the victim and we have some traditional antivirus installed here. So not to pick on any specific company, this could be any antivirus, traditional antivirus solution. In this case, I chose the most common one out there, which is SEP14, Semantic Endpoint Protection 14. Their latest and greatest. So it's not just the AV, their entire suite, which means the AV plus some proactive threat protection against unknown, some exploit mitigation against zero-day attacks, and they're all up to date. So it's all green. Your computer is protected, no problems detected. So you really can't go wrong with that. Aside from Symantec, we also have a more advanced, newer approach called Paranoid. That's a Nyotron solution. That's a hedgehog, and we have it here, much more lightweight, and using a completely different approach, which will be discussed right after this demo. So aside from the victim, we also have the attacker right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with really the probably one of the most common attacks in the world these days, which is a combination of spear phishing and ransomware. We also hear about these attacks more or less every day. We heard about one very interesting attack just, I think, yesterday of a law firm that their data not only got encrypted, but also got exfiltrated. So that's exactly the type of attack I'm going to use in this case. So here in the victim, we have some data that's currently perfectly fine, different file types that are not yet encrypted. Again, not yet. And what we're going to do, we're going to use the attacker to execute, to start some malicious version of LinkedIn. I'm using Metasploit, the very common penetration test environment. So what we're doing again is to run a web server with a malicious version of LinkedIn. It will be just enough to get to this website to get infected with a ransomware. So this ransomware is not only encrypting your data, is also exfiltrating it. So this empty folder right here is gonna be filled with the data after it got encrypted. So we're gonna send our victim this fake but pretty authentically looking LinkedIn invite from Jimmy Damani, the CTO of Placebo Bank. So Jimmy is going to invite our victim to visit this LinkedIn website. And again, it will be just enough to visit that website to get infected. So let's send the invite to our victim. And back to our victim. Here is the invite from Jimmy, and our victim is very aware of security. We will not accept this invite before we look at the profile. So let's look at the profile, and that is enough to get to this Jimmy's profile. We can look at Jimmy's friends like Rob Banks and stuff, but that's it. I mean, 3 hours to pay, 3 Bitcoins, $1,200. That tells you, gives you a hint of how old this ransomware is, because this is not exactly the currency these days of Bitcoin, but we have 3 hours to pay, and we can close this website. Let's look at our data. File names are the same, but the data is actually gone. File names are the same, file sizes are the same, but as you can see, data is not there anymore. And for many organizations, they really hear about this almost on a daily basis. This is really happening a lot, and this is kind of a game over for the organization. You hear very bad stories really about ransomware that, companies that had online backups and the backups got infected as well, and some ransomware actually distributed through these backups. Really bad stories. So if we look at and by the way, the fact that these file names are still the same is actually done on purpose, and it's pretty mean in particular, because if you are a very large organization, just mapping the infected files would be a mess. If we look at our traditional AV solution, we can see that we are still happy and green. Our computer is protected, no problems detected. And I can actually tell you that, in fact, that specific ransomware, which is pretty old in particular, was actually detected by not only Symantec but other engines as well. And it took us literally a single byte of modification to bypass, again, not just this engine, but almost any other engine out there. We've done a whole research just about the ability of legacy solutions of detecting known attacks, and the results are pretty bad, even when talking about known attacks. So just before I jump back to the presentation, if we take a look at the attacker, the data also get exfiltrated after the encryption, which is also done on purpose because that's the attacker's way of bypassing content-based solutions like DLP and stuff. If you encrypt the data before you exfiltrate it, DLP will not be very efficient. So just before I switch back to the presentation, that's how it looks with paranoid Neutron solution that detects this kind of attack. And I'll talk about different approaches aside from legacy solutions in just a few moments. So back to our presentation. I mentioned that there was some specific attack that was very similar to this demo that happened just yesterday. So I thought it's cool to mention that because this is exactly what I've demonstrated. Some interesting law firm in New York that represents some interesting clientele, as you can tell, got infected with exactly the same type of ransomware that also exfiltrates the data. Just I think it was yesterday. So thank you, Braintrace guys, that pointed out this specific article that connects very well to the demo I just gave you. So antiviruses, many people, they love to talk about antivirus. That's pretty much dead. But I'm actually not in the opinion that antivirus is dead. It's definitely not a big of a deal for the attacker. But do we really need it there or not? Again, the antivirus companies themselves declare that it's dead. But first of all, it's a common mistake. I mean, many organizations declared some entities dead. Some of them are doing it on a yearly basis. Apparently, 6,000 people turns living dead by Social Security every year. So it is a common mistake to kill things that are not exactly dead. But let's seriously talk about what's the role of AV, because I think the question that this is the actual question. It's not about whether it's dead or not. It's more about what's the role of it and whether there is a room for antivirus in your organization. So that's the way I look at cybersecurity attacks, no matter whether it's a ransomware or any other threat. I mean, any cybersecurity attack and threat can be described very, very simply in 4 stages. No need for 7 or other more complicated methods. It always starts with the way the attacker gets in, and it ends with the actual damage. So most security solutions, if not all of them, are actually concentrated on the first stage, which is the methodology of the attack. Now, funny enough, this is actually the infinite part of the flow, because the ways to get in are actually infinite. Still, most security solutions are focused on that part. They try to map, they try to classify infinity, and that's the first problem with most security solutions. AV is also there. AV will detect known malware. When it detects something, it will usually be known, maybe known exploits, more advanced solutions. And more advanced solutions will also detect variants of known malware. None of them will be able to detect a complete unknown attack. And that's because that's the way they were designed. I mean, they were not designed to detect unknown attacks. No matter how many times you will change your car, it will never fly. I mean, don't expect your newer, cooler car to fly. It's just not meant to do that. So that's the first problem. And the thing is that this is totally fine. I mean, we do need someone to watch the gate. We do need someone to write the parking tickets, but you cannot expect your local police department to stop state-level attacks. And that's the thing. They will never do that. Still, you do need someone to keep the order. Let's talk about really different approaches, because again, my point is that AV is needed, but it's just not the only thing that is needed. a whole different approach will really look at the things from a whole different angle. Security in depth is a good approach as long as you really have different layers that do different things. Adding another layer that does exactly the same as the previous one, that's not security in depth. So a very good example of a whole different angle will be a security tool that looks at the exact opposite part of the flow, which in this example, it's the damage. I mentioned that the attack method is the infinite part, but a whole different, the exact opposite part of the flow is the damage part that is actually finite. So the ways to get in are infinite, but the intentions of the attacker actually do not change. The attacker will always want to do the same thing. They will want to delete your data, exfiltrate it, manipulate it, which is not a short list, but it's a finite list. So a whole different security solution that does exactly the opposite of the antivirus would be a cool other way to stop security attacks. We love to call these AV solutions and legacy security solutions in general negative security, because what they do is they look for the bad stuff. And as we mentioned, the bad stuff is actually infinite. A whole different approach would be using a positive security model that is actually looking for the good ways of doing things. It doesn't have to be an application whitelisting solution, because these solutions were pretty much high maintenance when we looked at them in the past. That's because good applications are also infinite. But another solution that is doing positive security in a different level that is finite, like the OS, is actually totally feasible. I can talk specifically about Paranoid, Nyotron solution that is doing exactly that. It's a positive security solution that looks at the OS rather than the application level. And really the cool stuff is that the OS does not change. It's a single application that always do the same thing, and mapping the legitimate behaviors of that is totally feasible. So we're looking at a positive security solution that is focused on the finite part of the attack flow, which is the damage part, and hence it really does something completely different than your legacy security solution. Again, the way it works is by mapping legitimate behaviors of the OS, and fortunately, those routes are actually finite. So for example, if you want to get from point A to B, there will be infinite routes to take. But if you open your GPS or Google Maps, it will only offer you 3 reasonable routes. If I live in Santa Clara, that's where I am, and I want to get to Moscone Center, I guess most of you are very familiar with, in San Francisco. There are infinite routes to take, but Google Maps will only offer me 3 common routes. None of them will be through San Diego because it doesn't make sense. A security solution that really maps the legitimate paths to get from any point to any point will know, regardless of what route you take, if it makes sense or not. And that's exactly how Paranoid Nyotron solution is working. On every step you take, we analyze all the routes from there to anywhere dangerous, be it file deletion, file creation, or process execution. We will just make sure that you take a path that makes sense. And that way, we can actually protect you against no matter what type of threat, no matter what technique of attack. It doesn't really matter, because we only know how things should happen, and therefore we are threat agnostic. As I started by saying that defense in depth is totally right approach, you should never put all your eggs in one basket, and you should never expect one solution to do everything. Every security company, and all of you know there are tons of them, every security company is definitely very good at doing something, but no security company is really good at doing everything. So of course, you should not believe any company that says that. You should really find the right company to fulfill each role in your defense in depth approach. And AV certainly has a room. I think any security approach has a room. So negative security is actually good if you know what to expect from that. If you can stop the threat at the gate because you know it, it's actually very good. It's a very valid approach, but you should expect that some threats will be able to bypass the gate. Then I should ask you, how do you plan to stop these threats? And I think positive security model is a very valid model to do just that. It will be very, very efficient against fileless attacks, against true zero-day unknown threats. That's exactly the reason why we've built Paranoid. We've designed it to stop these types of attacks. So it's very good to know that you already have some negative security solution in most of your endpoints. I think this is a very good example of a deployment of defense in depth to just combine what you already have. We love to call it the agent and a half approach. You already have Microsoft Defender antivirus in most of your endpoints. So I think in the past we didn't look at it as an actual valid alternative for antivirus. Definitely, it is. It came a long way, and now it is a valid option. So we call it the agent and a half approach because you don't really have to have two actual agents there. This is the half agent that you already have, and combining it with a positive security-based approach would be a very strong combination and an actual implementation of defense in depth. Let's get back to the demos because I have one more example to show you. I think that again, demos are a great way to explain things. So let's get back to my environment. I have the attacker here waiting for another attack. Let's use a different exploit this time. I'm going to use another exploit for the browser. What we're going to do is, sorry for that. I have a typo right here. What I'm doing is I'm configuring a reverse shell payload. I'm going to use two different IPs. So the entire attack will be on 480 that I guess is used in your organization. We're going to run a malicious website on this IP, and the reverse shell will get back to this IP. And let's run the exploit. This time we're going to skip the spear phishing stories. And what we're going to do, here we have a false positive. We have the same configuration here on this victim, the same AV and Paranoid. And let's connect to that IP and see what's happening. Yep, I see that that's got detected by both, which is weird because I used an attack that is not supposed to get detected. All right. Let's revert this one. My plan was to show you why my attack is not getting detected, and then switch something to show you how it does get detected. Let's give it one more moment. I guess that was the cache. All right. So let's configure that quickly once again. I am now configuring the same attack. Everything looks good. give it another shot. All right, so now I used the payload that was not detected, and what I wanted to show you is why this payload wasn't detected, because again, I modified it just a little bit. I wanted to show you the modification. So as you can see, one solution detected the attack, the other one did not. And again, we are looking at latest and greatest version. This is not an old version. This is an up-to-date version with exploit mitigation. What you can see is that we've got a command shell session to that machine, so we can actually completely control the machine from the attacker's side. Here we've terminated the browser. We will create a file on the desktop and execute it. Actually, I wanted to execute that specific one. So here we have, we've executed Notepad with the file we've created. Let's kill Notepad and delete the file. So as you can see, our legacy solution did not detect that. If I switch to Paranoid, we can actually see the attack. We can actually see also the entire flow of the attack, which is pretty cool, all the way from the root cause to how we can show you in a player how the browser actually connected to this IP and then executed the command shell and show you each one of the activities that happened on the machine, all the way to the creation of the file and the notepad that read the file. Now, the interesting part, again, is why that legacy solution did not detect it. I know that everyone is aware of signatures and traditional approaches, but you rarely see the problem clearly as I want to show you right now, because I do have the original file before I modified it. Here it is on the attacker's machine. And I'm going to go back to the victim. And I will open the original file. As you can see, this file is being detected by Symantec. You can see that it has a CVE from 2012. It's a very, very old attack. Now I want to take you through the reason that it wasn't detected in my first, in my previous attempt. I will copy the file. I will open it with Notepad. Let's enlarge the font. So really, you don't even need to analyze the code. You don't really need to understand what's going on here. The logic is not really important, because the logic is not what this solution actually analyzes. It analyzes the smell, the look of the threat, and it basically compares it to the list of known threats. So we have lots of percents and numbers. I will literally add one single line of code, and instead of the number 7, I'll put 5 plus 2. So I will take a small, very small piece of the code, and I will do a very dummy find and replace of all number 7s with my variable that has 5 plus 2. So 5 plus 2 equals 7. We don't need a webinar for that. So no change in the logic, no change in the threat. It's very, very cosmetic change. It took me literally 10 seconds. I'll take another piece of the code, and I'll do the change at the bottom as well. So we did this change in 2 small places in the code. Exactly the same threat, but from the legacy solution, this is actually a brand new attack. And it doesn't have to be an old solution. It's actually the latest and greatest of their old approach. So I left this session that I created earlier back to my victim, and I will now visit the new page with 5 plus 2 instead of 7s. And we have another bug in my demo. Let's do this quickly again. Okay. Again, I'll create that line. Oh, sorry. There we go. And let's try again. There we go. Now it worked. So we've made the changes. I probably missed something in my previous change, and we are back in. We have another session, and that was exactly the change that was required to bypass that solution. So that summarizes, I think, my most of my points. I think that, again, defense in depth is a good approach as long as each layer is really doing something different, hopefully completely different. We all know that following the best practices of patches and updates is always right, is always true. With ransomware on the rise, backups are probably more important than ever. If you can use offline backups on top of the online backups, it's even better with ransomware. And again, defense in depth, that is true defense in depth, which was my main point in this webinar. Both us and Braintrace are always available to explain more, to discuss more with you. So please reach out with any more questions. Although I think we do have some time for questions now. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Nir. Great stuff. Got a couple questions here. First one is, what is your opinion about deploying EDR for better protection against ransomware?
Good question. I think EDR is great. EDR is a different approach also from the traditional endpoint protection. My problem is that D stands for detection, and it's if you listen to most pitches of EDR companies, it sounds to me like most of them kind of gave up on prevention. I think that prevention is absolutely possible. There are great approaches for prevention. We call our approach EPR, Endpoint Prevention and Response, as opposed to EDR. We do provide you the same level of visibility that EDR solutions provide, but we also prevent the damage, which is, I think, what you really want at the end of the day.
Right. Okay. I've got another one. There's a few here, actually. Another question is, why not just replace traditional antivirus with a so-called next generation antivirus?
So combining, you asked about combining next gen with antivirus, sorry?
Yeah, why not just replace a traditional with a next gen one? You mentioned earlier, I think, in the talk about how it's good to have layers in this. So why not? This question is, why not? Basically, I think they're asking, is just one tool enough? One application enough?
So I think that replacing the AV with the next gen AV is cool, but do you really achieve your goal? I mean, what are you really looking for? I think that next gen AV will, at the end of the day, not really give you a whole new level of security. By the way, the cost of this change will be very high. I think you really need to make to ask the question of what are you getting for your money with this replacement. I think that whether it's an AV or next gen AV, you do need a layer that was built to stop unknown attacks, and combining two tools that each of them is really good at what it was supposed to do is the right approach.
Right. That makes sense. You know, again, this is a Another one comes that says, what if we have an air-gapped server environment? This is over my head. What if we have an air-gapped server environment? Will your solution be able to support that?
Well, our solution will certainly be able to support air-gapped environment. It's actually pretty unique because most security solutions are not as efficient when they are in air-gapped environments. Some solutions are actually cannot operate in air-gapped environments at all. Specifically EDR solutions, by the way. Most EDR solutions are not able to operate in air-gapped environments. With Paranoid, specifically Nyotron solution, you have actually exactly the same level of security in an air-gapped environment because our entire logic resides at the agent. So if the agent is completely disconnected from the network, you will have 100% same level of security.
Great. Last question here, and it's kind of a general one, but I'm sure you have a response to this. How can we best protect our organization from ransomware?
So the best way of protecting your organization from ransomware is to have a solution that was really designed to stop unknown attacks, including ransomware. I know that today every cybersecurity company is talking about ransomware protection. We actually gave a talk recently, and we are about to give another talk. I think it's at the end of this month, specifically about anti-ransomware mechanisms. The problem with most security solutions is that they will sacrifice some files to determine if the pattern of the threat looks like a ransomware. That's because most of them are negative security based, like I described earlier. Paranoid Nyotron solution is again purely based on positive security. So with Paranoid, not even a single file will get encrypted if there is a ransomware. We will stop the ransomware from encrypting even a single file. So I would really recommend to use such approach, a security solution that is purely positive security based.
Great. Well, that concludes our time today. I want to again say thank you to Nir, thank you to Nyotron, thank you to my Braintrace colleagues for getting this set up. And again, if you have any questions, comments, would like more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to the folks on this call. I believe everyone, and Nir, are you clear? Does everyone have the appropriate information for yourself and for some of my colleagues at Braintrace? I think we do. I'm being told we do. So I actually, hold on. There's one other question. How does your solution compare to modern endpoint security products like Carbon Black, CrowdStrike, and Cylance?
Absolutely. These are all mainly EDR companies. Cylance is more of a next-gen AV solution. If we talk about EDR solutions, some of the previous questions are actually kind of referred to these companies. CrowdStrike, for example, cannot really operate at air-gapped environments at all. But overall, both Carbon Black and CrowdStrike are more of traditional EDR solutions that were built to detect attacks and not to stop them. Their prevention mechanisms are kind of limited. They will provide you a great amount of data that's a little bit overwhelming, in my opinion. Our solution will stop the damage and provide you a precise level of visibility. You will know exactly what's going on, and the damage will be stopped. Cylance is more of a static analysis solution. It's a next-gen AV. And again, if you look at security, our detection and prevention mechanisms are completely positive security based.
Okay, great. Another question, actually, I think this one's directed more at me. How do managed services relate to working with a tool like Nyotron and Paranoid? And I would say that obviously this is a tool that you can use without having a managed service or a SOC, if you will. However, integrating this tool into a landscape that is an overall SOC environment with other applications and other tools protecting the entire environment. It's one thing to have the tools and the automation. It's another thing to have people monitoring it. So depending on the structure of your organization and the size of it and what your objectives are with the security landscape, then it's important to have people watching and monitoring these applications from different perspectives. Another question is, it's kind of funny, right? When we wrapped up, we got a couple more. Can Nyotron perform application control? So this one's back over to you, Nir.
Totally, yeah. We analyze each activity on the endpoint. Therefore, we can absolutely replace application control solutions. We provide you with a capability to write your own hardening policies, and you can definitely use it as an application control.
Great. Okay, so that's it, guys. We want to say again, thank you to Nir, thank you to Nyotron, thank you to Braintrace, and please, like I said, if you have any questions, reach out and we will be happy to answer them and get you any more information that you need. Have a great afternoon or evening wherever you are, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.